Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed at Hipmix 88.9 WEIU.
Welcome to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. I am DJ Apollo, and today something very exciting is happening. I am doing my very first collab with a friend of mine on a music album. I've of course done collabs with other friends of mine regarding film, but this is the first time that I'm going to be talking about the subject of music with someone else. And with me today, I have my awesome friend
Preston.
Yeah, back on the show yet again. And he's been on many times before, and I'm very excited because we are talking about a particular Billy Joel album. Which album are we discussing today, Preston?
The Nylon Curtain.
And this one he considers to be a very hidden gem in Elton John and Billy Joel's catalog of music. I actually listened to this album for the very first time literally last night because, I'm guilty. I don't listen to Billy Joel. But this album, I thought, was very spectacular, and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let Preston here give off some basic information, and he's going to go into some of the songs that he particularly likes off this record. So, Preston, the mic is yours.
Okay, so for some very basic background for what inspired Billy Joel to make this album, I'm referencing Apple Music's summary. It says, Billy Joel survived punk and new wave, giving it a good shot with Glass Houses. But by 1982, Ronald Reagan was president, and baby boomers were settling into a reality of an America that was producing less and consuming more. John Lennon had been shot little more than a year earlier. Further coercing the atmosphere, Billy Joel set out to make the most ambitious album of his career, one that could stand together as a thematic whole. It'd end up as the best-sounding album in his catalog. He succeeds on most counts. It's among his favorites and was among the first albums to be recorded, mixed, and mastered digitally. On Allentown, Joel was remarkably in sync with another East Coast rocker, Bruce Springsteen, who released Nebraska the same year. Pressure inhabited John Lennon's range and spread it with Paul McCartney's sense of melody. And Goodnight Saigon addressed the Vietnam War. The full chime of She's Right on Time and the synth textures of Surprises proved Joel was, above all, a peerless craftsman who could write and layer music like few others in pop music. So it's really interesting to think about how he wrote this in a time where America was just really suffering. Like, we lost John Lennon, just such an icon, and he just saw that it was becoming harder and harder for the American dream to be achieved from people who weren't already at the top. And despite the fact that this says, and I agree with it, that it is his best-sounding album, it's also one of his least known. Because if you listen to his top songs, they don't come from this album. It's really, really interesting. So I'll segue that right into Allentown. What did you think of Allentown?
Honestly, I just found the song to be extremely, catchy. That was one thing I noticed when I was listening to this album. To me, it gives off this really, I can imagine all the music on this being played in the background at, a 50s diner. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like listening to this, it feels like I'm listening to a 50s record.
You know, I'm so glad you say that, because I don't know about you, but when I think of American Dream, I think 50s white picket fence,
exactly.
Nuclear family, and I think that's kind of why he made it in that theme.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was picturing with this. You know, like I was just imagining everybody sitting in like the small diner at the counter. There's like a jukebox in the corner, and that's playing. It's like it fits literally. If I didn't know about this album when like the year it was released, I would have assumed it was a '50s record because that's what it sounds like to me.
Absolutely. And it's like, I like Allentown because it sums up what a lot of the rest of the songs in the album kind of flesh out. Like, it just talks about what it's like to be younger, growing up in a world where the baby boomers have kind of risen to the top and they're settling in. And it's hard for people to get a foot in the door. And I think that makes this timeless because even though Billy Joel is a lot older than we are, we still kind of have that problem today. It's like we can't rise to the top like people used to. Like college is so expensive, and like there are so many things going on, like COVID-19. Like there's so much harsh stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's just like, dude, I'm telling you, this album, I think it's gotten more relevant. Since this release, like. The world, I think, it's in one of the worst places it's ever been in quite a while. Like, we're coming out of a 2-year pandemic, and just the economy's not in the best shape, and everybody is struggling, especially mentally wise. And I think this album is way more relevant now than I think it was at its release, 40 plus years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And that is a sign of true art, because I've found that a lot of art that's very timeless does not reach the top charts. It takes time and kind of like brews. It's ages like a fine wine.
Oh yeah, literally. Yeah, that's the good kind. If your music does that, you did your job right.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta be honest though, my favorite song. So I think this would be a good little segment. Actually, before we get into that, I want to give off a little bit of basic information. So the Nylon Curtain is actually the 8th studio album by the American singer and songwriter Billy Joel, released on September 23rd of 1982. So this record, literally not too long ago, just turned 40 years old.
Yeah,
funny enough. And it was produced by
Ramone.
Oh, Phil Ramone. So the album was produced by Phil Ramone. Nylon Curtain peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Albums chart with 2 million sales in the U.S. So, I mean, that's good, though, especially for like that time, considering what everything was going on during the early 80s. I feel like that's a good, like, 2 mil. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, yeah, that's 2 platinum, So, I mean,
yeah,
hey, it's sold good. And the label is CBS, and apparently, if you add up all the songs' runtimes, this record is 42 minutes long. It certainly didn't feel like it to me. Like, when I was listening to this over the course of 2 days, it felt like the songs went by really quick. I think that was because they were speaking to me so well,
Definitely. And this is a shorter album. Like Billy Joel, this album is only 9 songs long, and a lot of his others have a little bit more than that. So like 9 songs in an album is pretty unusual, but I think it was like truly just he wanted to put songs in there that spoke to him. And he didn't want to just throw filler songs in there to make it longer.
No, like as a good example, the Rolling Stones are very guilty of that. I didn't realize this. Apparently, if you go back and listen to a lot of like Rolling Stone albums, they would write like the 1 or 2 hits on the album that they were wanting, and then everything else was literally filler.
Yeah,
they did that a lot. But I never liked it when musicians do that. It's like every song should have the same amount of effort put into it.
Definitely.
That's my personal opinion. And Billy accomplished that 100%, I think, with this album. And I think this will be a good segue into our favorite songs. And I think you'll be able to help me out with this. So my favorite song off of this was Good Night, Saigon, because this song in particular really spoke to me because the lyrics to this, I felt like I was having a poem being read to me. The way the lyrics are in this song, I think they were very unlike stuff I've heard before. And like, what was your take on Goodnight Saigon?
Goodnight Saigon, I found it very interesting that he chose to go with the route of the Vietnam War, because you don't really think of that as being something relevant to someone in 1982.
Yeah, because like think about it. Like by this time, we pulled out of Vietnam in '73, so it's like we're 9 years later. People may have moved on from that at that point. So to revert back to it, would you call that a risk, you think, of talking
Absolutely.
about that?
And I think that might be part of the reason this song didn't go as highly as Allentown or Pressure, because it's more relevant to people a little bit older than 1982. So it's not like he was singing about the War of 1812 here, but
yeah,
like it was, I think it was to represent the people in the older ranks, like the baby boomers. It spoke to them too.
Yeah, absolutely. And dude, the lyrics in this song, it feels like you're listening to a history lesson. Like one of my favorite lyrics in this, right, is that we had no home front, we had a soft soap, they sent us Playboy, they gave us Bob Hope. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's like you're listening to like a history lesson of what the average soldier, because Bob Hope was an entertainer, and during the wars he would go out and entertain the soldiers. And I've actually, if you want to see what he was like, I recommend, he appeared several times on the Dean Martin show back in the 70s. And yeah, like the lyrics in this song, like we had no cameras to shoot the landscape. We passed the hash pipe and played our Doors tapes, talking about the Doors.
Well, and I'll tell you, 4 lines that really give me chills in this song. It's when it says, "And we were sharp as knives, and we were so gung-ho to lay down our lives. We came in spastic like tameless horses. We left in plastic as numbered corpses."
Yeah, like
they came in so gung-ho, like, "Oh, we're proud American boys. We're gonna go fight," and then they're coming out. Some are dead. Some are just they are completely changed, and that just speaks to how horrible war can be, and it just gives me chills.
Yeah, because like you're going into it thinking you're going to be like this hero that's going to save the day, then you just come out like you come out like you're scarred for life. You lost a limb. You're mentally scarred for the rest of your life. You quickly realize war is not what it's cracked out to be. It's horrible.
Yes.
Very, very horrible, and nothing good about it whatsoever.
Well, and a movie I can relate it to, if we could just segue.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely, yeah.
Shawshank Redemption. Or no, sorry, not Shawshank Redemption. Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, Hacksaw Ridge. Okay.
I don't know why I thought Shawshank
No,
Redemption.
you're fine. You're fine. Go ahead, though. So why that movie?
Well, have you ever seen that movie, first of all?
I gotta remember. It's been a hot minute. You continue talking about it. I'm going to look it up to make sure it's the same one I'm thinking of.
It stars Andrew Garfield, and at the beginning of the movie, with the training, like a lot of the other soldiers are like
the movie where the medic, who is very religious, refuses to pick up a gun, runs back into the battlefield and drags 75 wounded soldiers off the cliff.
Correct.
I get it. Yeah.
The other soldiers around him, it doesn't relate to him so much, but like they went in like so ready to fight, and like we're gonna take it to those Japanese, and they
get destroyed instantly.
Right. Like, there was the guy in that movie where, like, every war movie has a stereotypical soldier that picks on you in training. Later in that movie, he looks at the main character and says, "I'm scared."
Yeah, because so they end up becoming friends, and he explains why he was so harsh. Like, he never knew who his dad was. His mom put him in an orphanage when he was, like, 3 or 4 years old, so he was raised extremely harshly, but him and the main character eventually became friends, and the U.S. troops got overwhelmed by the Japs, and the one of the main sergeants calls in a artillery strike from the battleships off the shore. So everybody's like running off the ridge before the strikes come in, and while they're running away, the guy gets hit several times from a machine gun. He's laying on the ground. He grabs Dawes. And he's like, "I'm scared, man," and Dawes picks him up, drags and carries him back to the cliff, but he died when they were running back.
And I realize that's a different war, but I mean,
it's the same thing,
Exactly.
War is war. It's just a different time, but it's same thing.
Right. Which again just goes back to this album being timeless.
Yeah. Oh, timeless. Absolutely. No doubt about it. And I'm very curious. So why did you like Allentown so much?
I just think it was a very, very good opening to this album. It really set immediately what his purpose for making this album was, talking about the baby boomers and like having this pedestal that we couldn't reach, and just like everyone's just living day in and day out. Like there's no American dream for everyday people. It's gone.
Like it's just a maybe it some people might even say, what if it was never real in the first place? Because some people are like, was the American dream ever really true?
That's a really good point, and I don't know how to answer that, because I'll be honest with you, Christian, I don't think we've ever witnessed it.
Yeah,
if it ever was real, it's been gone for a long time.
If it was real, it's been gone for our lifetimes anyway.
Yes.
I've seen nothing in my 23 years to say that was something I would dream of. You know what I mean?
And I will say that life before COVID was a lot closer to the American dream. I didn't know to appreciate what I had until it was gone.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, man.
And perhaps that's why they say the American dream never existed, because we don't know how to appreciate what we have, because we don't know what we could be missing until we lose it.
Exactly. I mean, honestly though, I feel like dude, I just feel like that's just like implemented in us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's nothing we could do about that. I feel like that's just how we're wired.
Yeah.
When we're created.
Absolutely. Man, leave it to Billy Joel to turn this philosophical, man.
Yeah, tell me about it. This is the last thing I thought we were going to head with this recording session.
Yeah.
But dude, I'm telling you right now though, the verse in Allentown that really hit me, I can imagine how this is how someone's grandparents met. Well, our fathers fought the Second World War, spent their weekends on the Jersey Shore, met our mothers at the USO, asked them to dance, danced with them slow. It's like you're reading an origin story to how a man met his future wife.
Yes.
That's what it feels like. Because back in the day, before the age of cell phones, people actually did use to socialize with one another, and it wasn't about attention getting and all that nonsense. Like, love was true. Back then, anyway. And that verse really speaks to me on that and how it used to be. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And another song in this album that I really want to highlight on is Pressure.
Oh, yeah, Pressure. Absolutely. Dude, that was such a good song. And Pressure was... Here, give me a minute. I think that was track number 3? Yes, it was. Pressure is the third track on this record. So why does this one stand out to you?
Well, first of all, this is the most popular song on the whole album.
Really?
But
okay,
that's not really why I chose it. It is by far the most well-known, as far as I know. It's higher than Allentown, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the reason why I chose it is because it screams to me the stereotype of older people telling a younger generation they're not good enough. It's like there's lyrics where it says, "You've only had to run so far, so good, but you will come to a place where the only thing you feel are loaded guns in your face, and you'll have to deal with pressure." So it's like saying someone's a snowflake and they've never had to deal with what they had to deal with. And I think that's wrong. I don't think that's a good way to look at things.
Yeah.
It may be different, but we still have struggles.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's that's a whole other can of worms that we could really get into. Because here's the thing now. I need a history lesson update. What time era was the baby boomer generation?
That was
that
the
after-
60s.
That I thought the baby boomer was World War II. Because
Well-
wasn't like the baby boomer where like all the soldiers came home and then the rate in childbirth like skyrocketed? Like I'm gonna look that up. Hold on.
I know
'Cause-
that my grandparents are in the boomer generation, and they grew up in the 60s, so it could just spread. It
Yeah.
could just extend.
Let's take a look here. What time era was the baby
Oh, I got it. 1946 to 1964.
Oh,
so it
that
did
was,
go to the early 60s.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's like right after World War II.
Right
Gotcha.
after World War II to 64, which is interesting because that's spreading all the way through the 50s to like the civil rights movement eras.
Yeah, that's very crazy. And like I feel like that generation, like they got a free ride though, didn't they? During that time, you know, the like World War II was over. There were some small battles going on, but for a good decade, it was peace on Earth.
Yeah.
So there's no conflict, right? So these people got to do whatever the heck they wanted without, you know,
Well, when
without
was
really
Vietnam?
any consequences. Vietnam theoretically was already going on, I think, by that point.
When did we get involved?
But we didn't get involved until like the mid-late 60s. So this was before we got involved. So I don't
So,
think anybody
yeah,
was thinking. Nobody
was-
was thinking about it yet.
No, so there wasn't much war. Like, sure, these people may have, like, their parents would have fought in this war.
Yeah, like their parents were, you know, probably the soul,
Like
you know,
World War II.
like their dads were probably all veterans that survived and came home,
Right.
You know, and
But, like they had a decent time. I mean, the civil rights movement, that was hard. Like,
oh yeah, that was hard, no doubt about that. But as I think about it, these guys had the nice cars, they had rock and roll, like they had the good white picket fence lifestyle, like the quote American dream, like they had it all.
Well,
so I feel
yeah.
so I feel like during that time it's kind of like what's going on now, but not as bad, where it's like there's no wars going on really, and so we can just do whatever we want or something.
and I personally view it as the civil rights movement has never completely died. We still have civil struggles, and on top of that, we're dealing with maybe not official declarations of war, but like with everything going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, I was gonna see.
and
That's
the
why
Middle East.
That's why I'm saying kind of like
Yeah.
like no major wars that we're involved with at the moment, because Afghanistan's basically kind of wrapped up a little bit at this point, but we have the war on with Russia and Ukraine, which I don't know how that's gonna end up. But it's just like, dude, there's so many horrible things going on right now. And this album, just like I said, it's scary to me how well it fits in with today's times.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
But yet, that's also comforting because it
How
shows,
so? Like, how is it comforting?
despite the fact that this is from 1982 and we weren't even born yet,
like
this
dude,
speaks to us, which means that there are people that get it out.
well, yeah, I did. My dad was 11 when this came out. My mom was 5 when this came out. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, but it's so good, and this album deserves more attention. It really does. Not that it's like never heard of, but it certainly on the list of Billy Joel's albums, it is not the top.
Yeah, and I was wanting to get into, I think maybe we could cover another song that I really liked. It's called Where is the Orchestra? Now, do you know what this song's trying to tell us exactly? I was a little confused with the lyrics, because like it says like the movie star who never faced an audience, where's the orchestra? After all, this is my big night on the town, my introduction to the theater crowd. So I'm like, is he talking about like acting? I'm a little confused on what.
I think what I interpret this to be is that, like, America after World War II, I imagine, like, the whole world thought we were never going to have a world war again. It was like, we're prospering, like, we're never going to go back into that. I imagine that to be the orchestra, where it's, like, promising all this good stuff, and he's like, where's this orchestra?
Wasn't
this supposed to be a musical talking about his life?
Oh yeah, it's like
here
you
I
gave
am.
us all his promises, yet here we are, another battle again.
Here I am in the balcony. How the hell could I have missed the overture? Like, it's like we haven't gotten what we were promised. Like, what's going on? That's what I imagine that to be. And that is a powerful way to end the album, because this is the last song on the album.
Yeah, and I feel like, dude, this part here really hit me like a ton of bricks. It goes, and after the curtain falls on empty chairs, where's the orchestra? And that's literally like,
Yeah.
Like, dude, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I'll say again, because like I'm imagining like the crowd just leaves, right? You have like a leader promising all this, and they're just like, here's what I get from it. It's like another guy who wants to run for a high power, making all these promises, and the crowd's like, you know what? We've heard this a million times before. We're out of here. You know?
Yeah.
They just leave.
And
Like we're done. We're done. Like we're done giving you chances. It's the same. You politicians. You're all the same. You know,
without getting too political, that's how I feel when I turn on the news and I see some election campaign. I'm like, look, actions speak louder than words, and I haven't seen enough action from anybody to make me really believe we're getting anywhere.
Yeah. And that's what that song, like, dude, another example. That song fits in perfectly with that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just like, my gosh.
And I think that was purposeful.
Yeah.
And
literally.
You could take a million different meanings from this song, and none of them are wrong. But that's the beauty of it. But, like, I'm going to jump to a completely different genre, but have you ever heard, it's a song called, from Disturbed, they made a cover of Simon and Garfunkel's, like, "Hello, Darkness, My Old Friend."
That's a Sound of Silence.
Yeah, Sound of Silence.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Thank you. I imagine that to be a similar message, where it's like, look, there's people shouting out here, but they're not saying anything, and we're not getting anywhere. And it's like someone's got to start listening.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I see, like that's what I get too. It's just like I feel like the Sound of Silence is more relevant now, I think, than it was back in the early '60s, where it's just like people were fed up and tired with things just going the same old way over and over again, and we just continuously get worse.
Yes,
we hate each other. Like why? Why is there so much darkness in this world? And that's what I get from this record, too. Like, these songs, it's like, dude, to say that Billy got deep with these tracks.
That's an understatement.
It's an understatement.
Yes.
And
his thing is, he's known for doing that his other albums. Like, this is not in this album, but everyone knows it. We Didn't Start the Fire, talking about, like, he made that song and he was like, what has my generation accomplished? Like, I can't think of anything we've done. And he did research and found out so many historical things have happened through their life. And he's like, I'm going to make a song out of this.
Yeah, I love that.
So he gets deep. And that's a completely different kind of message. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But, like, Billy Joel really writes messages into his songs. And that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. He's like a poet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I've never seen an artist with this kind of like lyric play before. Here's another. I feel like this next song right here, I was also wanting to give this one a brief mention. Scandinavian Skies.
Yes.
This one really stood out to me too, but I'm confused on what the message is for this one. Like, it's really catchy. I like it a lot, but I'm confused on what he's trying to say here. I could use like an extra pair of eyes here. Like, we were mainly sound and lights in the vines. We could play the blues all night. The tour of Germany was bleeding into our eyes. Do you think that's WW2 again?
That's a good question. Probably not, because Scandinavian is more like Norwegian.
Yeah.
And like, you know what? I'm gonna kind of look that up real quick.
Yeah, because I'm curious to see like what he's trying to say. Like, what's the message on this one? Because I find this song so intriguing, you know, with the way it is.
Okay, so the lyrics of Scandinavian Skies appear to be about an event that occurred to Joel during a tour of Europe. In the lyrics refers to an incident that occurred in Amsterdam that caused the musicians to flee the Netherlands to Sweden. Later in the song, Joel sings of issues that occurred while touring Scandinavia, including financial concerns and loss of power during a show in Norway. The lyrics are not explicit about what the surprise or sins of Amsterdam were, although music critic Mark Bago suggests that they appear to be to relate to drugs and possibly sex. So I'm not really sure how this one does seem to kind of stick out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the album.
Yeah, but I still find it very intriguing. But like you said, there could be millions of ways to interpret this. But I feel like what you just said, though, is like the best explanation. Like, it makes sense to me now. Now that I'm really thinking about it, with that in mind, I think that song makes a lot more sense to me. Because you're not kidding. Like, this one, you listen to this one, it feels like it really stands out from the others. Like, you know how like albums, all the songs are kind of like connected in some way. With this, I didn't really feel that. It felt different. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, though.
No,
you know, like,
and I think that may just be an example of one song that hasn't necessarily like aged well with us, but it was supposed to be very personal, so it could have been that he was just writing a song that was very cryptic, that he didn't necessarily need to connect to everyone else. And it's like, this was an experience that I had. But the best guess I can think of for why he would have put that in this album is to show that the rest of the world outside of America is also messed up too.
yeah, exactly. Like, I can definitely see that with this song, and I have to appreciate him. I have to. Here's the thing, though. Do you think it takes a lot of guts to go after the media like this?
Yes.
Like, writing songs talking about issues like this deep that we're discussing, I feel like it takes a lot of guts to really talk about that. You know what I mean? Like,
especially in 1982, where people were extremely conspiratorial in 1982.
oh yeah,
Like, I played Dungeons and Dragons, and like back in the 80s, that was like being attacked. Like, it was just crazy things people come up with, or they were saying that rock and roll was like satanic and things like that. And,
oh yeah,
and then to come up with something like that, where it's speaking cryptic, but yet it speaks volumes, was so brave, in my opinion.
oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And yeah, this album, I think, was an amazing record. I had a great time listening to it, and it was a lot different compared to what I'm used to. And I've really been trying to broaden my horizons with more music. And Billy Joel, I think I'm really starting to get into him.
Yeah, I highly recommend listening to Scenes in an Italian Restaurant.
Oh, I think I've heard of that one before, actually.
It's long, but it tells a whole story. And it's amazing. That is from one of his more popular albums, The Stranger. That has a lot of his very well-known songs in it. But that all of his albums are gems. I will say the only album from Billy Joel I don't really care for is called The River. Like, at least I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Hold on. Your River of Dreams.
River of Dreams. That's right. I was looking through albums last night, and I saw that name.
That album, it's not bad, but it is a very, very different style from the rest of his albums. And it has some famous songs, but in my opinion, it's just not... It's not the Billy Joel I like.
Oh, sure. Maybe, you know what I think that is? I'm pretty sure... What year did that come out?
That came out 1993.
Oh, so I guarantee you, I know exactly what it is. You know how with a lot of musicians, how like a certain period of time further into their career, they decide to get more experimental and they really change their sound up. and it can either be taken in a great way or a negative way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I feel like that was Billy Joel at that point. He was probably like, okay, I've been in the business for a good maybe 20 plus 30 years. It's time I change the sound up. I feel like I guarantee you that's why that one wasn't as good.
Right. And yet in his, like, you go to The Stranger, which by the way is his has been acclaimed as his finest studio album. That was 1977, so he was a lot younger then. And they actually compare that album with Elton John and Paul McCartney's music, so that's huge.
Yeah, to be compared to those icons, like, that says something.
Right. And what's interesting is 1993, that is a significant amount of years after his other albums. Like, it goes
definitely
77, 78, 80, 82, 83, 86, and then 89, and then all the way to 1993.
Yeah.
So I think he was just writing that because he's like, yeah, I haven't made music in a while, but I'm tired.
Oh yeah. It's like further into the career, like, man, I'm getting up there in age. I'm gonna take more time off. Yeah.
With that being said, it still has a couple of very famous songs in it. But yeah, so sorry to get off track, but yeah, Nylon Curtain, hidden gem. I think it's not only does it speak to us, but I think it's going to speak to generations to come. It's just one of those albums.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, it's one of those albums. It's timeless. It fits in the older it gets. I highly recommend that you listen to this album and really listen to what he says to you in this record. I think it's way more relevant now than it was 40 years ago. So happy 40 years to Nylon Curtain.
Yeah.
And here's to another 40 years. And I just want to say thank you to Billy Joel for giving us this hidden gem masterpiece.
Absolutely.
And Preston, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on to the show to discuss this amazing record.
Oh yeah, of course. I love coming on here. This was a great episode. I'm so happy you had me on to talk about Billy Joel.
Oh, absolutely. So like, I got the idea to do this episode because Preston, I heard him talking with other friends of his how much he liked Billy Joel, and I'm just like, okay, I got to get Preston on here, and we got to go over a Billy Joel album together. It's got to happen. And I asked him, like, listen, I'm going to invite you on the show. You pick the Billy Joel album. I don't care which one it is. I'll listen to it, and we'll go over it together. So this whole project here was a dream come true for me. So very amazing opportunity to hear your insight on this album.
I really appreciate that, man. And you had some great insight, too. After just listening to this album for the first time, like, yesterday, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah. Over the span of 2 days, Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah. And just everything you were able to take from it just re-solidifies to me how amazing this album is and how much it needs to be heard.
Yeah, I feel like it would really change people's lives. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like life-changing to me.
It
like,
is.
It opened up my eyes on some things, to say the least. But yeah, that is the review of Nylon Curtain. And I just want to say that I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I will see you on the next one. And this is DJ Apollo and
Preston
here on the Tales of Music and Film.